Here's what makes me so mad about mindfulness, meditation. Their addictions and abuse and like failed quote unquote relationships, quote unquote failed quote unquote relationships. Rape is like rampant. Like, people are horrible to each other, and it's only because they just want a connection and nobody knows how to do it. And we are ballsy enough, as even like in the psychological profession, to act like if we distill a practice which is supposed to be spiritual, i.e., it's supposed to connect you to a bigger whole, not separate you from everything. And maybe there is a purpose and a place for a type of meditation that separates you from everything, but most people's addictions and their quote unquote symptoms and all the things that are going wrong in their lives are a result of the fact that we live in this society that does not honor human connection and human relationships in any way. We preach relationships and love, but it's not actually honored or prioritized anywhere in Western society. Everything is about money, and money is just currency, which was originally designed as a means for us to be able to connect with each other in a more efficient way. Like, let's relieve the pressure of our lives and create this currency that we can use so that we don't have to work so hard, so we can actually connect with each other and connect with the greater whole in the earth, spend our time in a way we want to spend our time. And we've gotten so far removed from the idea of what that's supposed to be that people are just completely traumatized on a mass scale in all of Western society. And then, you know, other places too, because of this. And I just, like, meditation that I have now been educated about and learned about is so much more meaningful and powerful and like magical. And that's a word that I never would have used before, but it like literally feels like magic compared to anything that Western psychology teaches, and particularly the bastardized version of meditation that is taught as mindfulness, quote unquote, techniques, which just fragment like a completely beautiful, like amazing thing that the brain and our neurological system is designed and meant to do, which is being squelched by our society. And I understand why there's like an impulse for, or why there's a energy that is bringing in meditation as a solution, but it's like even that has been appropriated. And, you know, I'm just like, I want people to know about what meditation is really supposed to be. And I wish we had better language for it, because now like the word meditation is just completely gutted. It doesn't mean people hear it and they think they know what it means now, and it doesn't. The type of meditation that is taught in like a more commercialized and or like therapized way in the West is just like a hollow, brittle shell of what is known by ancient, like Vedic practice. I mean, it's been taught for millennia, and we've been separated from it. And it's like I like want everybody to know that it's okay to like connect with your senses. that's the whole thing. It's like we like meet like our problems, which are totally rooted in the fact that we are not connected with each other, um, and with spirituality, um, which is to say that there is this collective that you can be a part, like your brain can enter, your neurological system can interact with, like you're a part of a flock of geese or something. And we are disconnected from that. It's like as a species, we've completely forgotten that that's like literally a biological component of how our neurological system works. But we're so far, it's like Western medicine and like the scientific method came about long enough into what the Westernized way of doing things that it's like by then they had even forgotten to even study. It's like the language had been lost, and like and people had been persecuted for a long time, and in order to like squelch this sort of this like the wisdom of our species, because you can control people if you can like make them forget that they have this like capacity to use their neurological systems in a way that is far beyond anything that Western medicine like acknowledges in a mainstream way. And but it's okay to connect with your senses. It's okay to like look for practices that help you immerse in them. Like if you have an instinct to move, like just like in, taught in like occupational type practices and occupational therapy and different like approaches to sensory issues or ADHD, like maybe it's better to lean into like your desire to move, or lean into your love of music and like throw yourself into just like dancing without caring what anybody thinks. Or not caring what like you look like, just by yourself at home. Or like doing these like singing. I'm like not doing a good job because I'm just coming off of like just like this like pissing me off. I just like have waves of it like hitting me in different ways where it just like breaks my heart, because it's like everybody is so desperate to connect that like, and we know that that's where addictions come from. It's like a desire to connect, and it's like, and I'm saying addictions and I'm throwing in like brain neurological patterns that also like create like things like eating disorders and anxiety disorders and like OCD type tendencies, etc. In addition to like addictions like alcoholism, which alcohol, which will, if you abuse it, anything abused, you get the energy is what am I trying to say? The energy is warped. So like alcohol might meet a need for a minute, and then it's turns into something that really lowers your consciousness level, like on a more like in a long form kind of way, like if you drink a lot, or but like all these addictions are just our impulse to like really have connection, and we know that. And people have really messed up relationships because we don't know how to connect. We don't have good examples of like what is a good relationship, and what does it mean to be honest about your feelings, and what does it mean to talk about what you want and share your needs with somebody else. What does it mean to like continue to be flexible with somebody else's identity and like their desires and their own needs, and willingness to kind of like flex with the roles in relationships. We don't have any of that. Like we don't do those things. We're so disconnected. So like what I'm trying to say, like look at like the tantric kind of practices. It's not just about like, it's not like a sex thing, which was like a Westernized kind of version of, or it kind of just took a little piece of it. But Tantra is really an entire way of life. And so, yeah, there's like a little bit that they say about like ancient people say about you know, the role of sexuality in your life, sure, because it's extremely powerful, yes, and important, but that's a different time, different talk, I mean. But it's about like immersing yourself in your senses, and like using your, like immersing yourself in your body and loving your body, not separating yourself from it. Like everything that to do with our body image issues, quote unquote, and the way that we interact with food and nourishment and sexuality is like, is to do with our how much we're disconnected from our own bodies. Like we're so disconnected spiritually, we're so disconnected, like our soul, body, and our mind are just like in this disconnect. In the West, we're just, our consciousness is so like focused on the mind and those things, and forgets that it's like we have like literally had a species, like a species level type of amnesia over millennia. And it's like half our I mean, I'm saying half, it's like the vocal wordy part of our species has amnesia about this. And then in other parts of the world, there are other people who are being abused by virtue of this in different ways. But anyway, yeah, so try to find ways to connect with your senses and be in the ones that are there, because your senses are there to help you process like what's coming in. And when you aren't in your senses, when you don't let your consciousness stay with what's actually happening, that's when stuff gets stuck and feelings come through and sensory information comes through that might have zero to do with you, like somebody might give you a sideways glance somewhere and like it really has nothing to do with you. It's like something about you triggered them because of something in their own life. And it's like, you might not even see that person do that, but on some level, like you pick up on it. And it's like that kind of thing. Like if you then have like a response where you kind of dissociate, like you feel like an anxious, like, oh, I'm being judged feeling, and you kind of dissociate, like just a hair, like even in a sort of slightly subconscious way in that moment when you're at the grocery store or whatever, it's like the rest of your day, there's like something, it's like a little tiny grain in your shoe, like grain of sand, like not even a pebble, but it's like that grain of sand. It's like you're the oyster shell and your thoughts are the oyster shell. Because it's like your thoughts can pick up on like, okay, there's something here. And your thoughts like calcify around that energetic impulse or that energetic like stimulus of that person giving you a weird glance at the store that you didn't even like notice that you perceived. Like stuff like even something so small can become, because we are not in our senses and don't notice like, oh, I just felt some anxiety right now. Is there, and then like be able to also have the, like if you practice meditation, then you would also be able to then be like, oh, there's not, like be able to tell your body it's okay, and your body would stop, like would be able to release that feeling, because you would look around and be like, okay, there's nothing wrong, I don't see anything happening, like there's nothing that I should be, and you're able to like make it go away. Whereas we're so not in our senses that it's like that stuff comes in, and it's just like you end up at the end of the day and your shoes are just like full of sludge from all these tiny little grains of sand that have been, I don't know, I don't want to say your shoes are full of pearls because that's where this metaphor seems to be going, but yeah, I mean it is just like you end up with just tons of stuff, and like that original tiny little grain of sand, that's the one. Like if you were in a good space of consciousness and you walk in and have that experience, it's like a tiny grain of sand that that then like your thoughts notice it's there. And if you're not otherwise like being conscious of the fact that your thoughts are trying to like figure it out, that there's like a feeling over here that we need to figure out and put thoughts around. If you're not conscious of the fact that that's happening, and you don't like say, okay, at ease, it's okay, thoughts, like you don't have to like start like coiling around that.
and forming this, like, it's like figuring it out, we're figuring it out. So then it's like every other impulse that comes in throughout your day, you put in this like shell around that energetic impulse. And it's just like we are so, and then we go to sleep and we don't ever actually process any of this stuff. And we're just full of these like calcified feelings, a lot of which aren't even ours. And or if they are ours, it's like we didn't ever get to be taken care of for whatever that feeling was, or like be able to tell ourselves, like, oh, it's okay, like you're not doing anything wrong, or like you know, you're okay, you're worthy, even though that person gave you a weird look or whatever. Yeah, be in your feelings doesn't mean that you're gonna be like weeping and emoting all the time. I mean, it might at the beginning, because everybody has tons of trauma and it just like needs to be processed. It's like, because it is like literally like calcified throughout our bodies, like everything gets mucked up. It creates dis-ease. Yeah, be in your feelings and like rethink mindfulness stuff. Like, what, some of that is okay, but like really examine what that practice is telling you to do, and the rules and the structures that it's giving you, and all the things that it's giving you to worry about. Because to me, it's like, I don't want to put more language to the things that bother me. I don't want to put more language to things that I didn't otherwise need language for. Because sometimes you can just feel a feeling and tell yourself, okay, that's not my feeling. I don't need to like come up with like a reason as to why that's there. And a lot of times with like my phone cut off, but what I was just saying, a lot of times with mindfulness, or the way that mindfulness is taught, it tells us that it's like, if you have a feeling, then you should be able to transmute it into like a visual, and maybe like put it in a cloud and let it float away, or put some words to it and like throw it away. But you can shortcut, and that can be helpful to a certain extent with persistent thoughts. Like, but that's more of a, like, I use that more to just notice overarching patterns of things that I need to look at. But I don't sit in meditation and focus on, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? What am I thinking? That doesn't work for me. And mindfulness can be a good practice in some certain situations. So just everything in shades of gray, but the really, really helpful type of meditation is a practice where you go inside, and there's something that you find that you hang on to, and you just hang there, but like comfortably and held, and swing with whatever energies, and i.e. emotions, feelings, thought forms, images, anything that's washing over you. You just kind of hang with it, and maybe try to like immerse. So that could be just more of a blissful kind of trance-like meditation, which is extremely healing, because there are very few times where we're taught a way to get your mind to be peaceful. And there is actually like a mechanism to do it. It's not just one of those things where it's like, oh, I can't, my mind won't shut down. That's not it. You learn how to do it, and there's a specific thing that you do to get it to do that, and a specific way of practice, or there are many specific ways of practicing, but it's not just something that you should know how to do off the top of your head, except for the fact that like it has been stolen away from us, and we do, I think, have a divine right to know how to do this stuff, and it's been like oppressed as a knowledge form and a way of healing. And this is all part of the divine feminine being repressed too, because the divine feminine is representative of spirit, because spirit is the receiver and processes things. But I think like in our society, we are just way too cognitively based already, and we get so lost in our thoughts, and we just think about our thoughts, and then think more about the thoughts that we're thinking, and then think more about those thoughts, and think more about those thoughts, instead of like even recognizing that there's a different way. There's a totally different way that your brain can operate, and your life would feel so different. And I think that tantric, this is like one example. There are a bunch of different paradigms that teach, and like cultures that teach this, and spiritual prophets and people teach it. Jesus taught it, but everyone misinterprets what the Bible's saying. But that's another conversation too. But Jesus literally was teaching tantra and like manifestation and feel your feelings, and like and that people missed it. They missed it. It's like right there. Like it's interesting. But yeah, tantra is like, it's like go out, and it's like can be encompassing of like practices where you ground, where you just go out and put your feet like on the ground, like maybe in the grass, in the dirt, and like get out of your head thinking that you need to have shoes on to have your body make contact with the earth. Get out of your head feeling like you need to have gloves on for your hands to touch things. Those are myths, and they're fear-based myths. It's not true. Like, just there's a time and a place for gloves, and obviously there's a time and a place for shoes. Like, what a great invention. Like wonderful, like things that we do with thought as a species. Wonderful things that we do with thought to come up with the idea of gloves, because hands are hugely important, and to protect them is like when you're doing something that might hurt them is very useful. But like, stop being scared that like, or like maybe it's not even stop being scared. It's like you might not even, this is one of those things, like you don't even notice that like you kind of forget that it's okay for your feet to make contact with the ground, for your feet to make contact with dirt. It's like you really stop thinking about it, and it's like, wait, or stop and think about it. It's like, wait, why is it that I'm worried about my skin touching the dirt? Like, what am I scared of? And then it's like, actually, or like, you know, getting rained on. It's like, hey, our skin is waterproof. Guess what? Like, we have a adaptation to help us with, we're not going to melt. I mean, there's some people I really wish would melt, but you know, this is like it is like the classic like forces of good and evil. And we have been separated from the coolest stuff that our species can do. And then we're being fed like practices like mindfulness that just distract people even more from anything that could make you feel connected and happy. So please, let's talk about some other stuff besides just like only the stuff that somebody's branded and it like has scientifically studied in a like neutral environment where they're not actually examining anybody else, like any of the rest of people's life factors when they're looking at the results of that stuff. It just doesn't, it's not universally helpful. It's just not. And that's controversial for me to say, because I really do love like peer review, and I mean, I love the idealized concept of these things, but it's not right. It's all upside down, and we are not producing research and knowledge on the things that are really important. We're producing like random research and knowledge on stuff that's like not, it's redundant of like stuff that we already know why it's not useful too. So it's like a redundant error in like proclaiming that like mindfulness and like naming your thoughts and stuff is going to be the solution for how to get rid of your anxiety or your lack of self-esteem or your inability to harness your sense of agency, and harness a sense of meaning. Like, I've been an atheist my entire life, and I've always been a very loving person, but like I just was like, nope, I don't see how there could be. It's like science explains everything that I can think of that sounds like it has a, but no, we don't. It's just that I was not exposed to enough stuff. And once you start actually exposing yourself to more, then you realize that Western science completely overlays with all these things that like basically seem like magic. And don't we all just like want a little bit more magic? We want magic, right? Like, that's what we need. We need magic. We need connection. We need love. We need relationships. And I promise meditation is not boring. It's like blissing out and you're not like on anything. Your brain can do that itself, just like on demand, if you train yourself to do it. And before you can even get to that point, it's like immensely helpful, and makes you just feel so much more like at peace about things. And it's just like gives you perspective. It helps you. It's like the feeling of like going up an airplane and everything just seems so small. Or you go across the country on a trip and all of a sudden your issues at home, which are still just as real from the other day, are like, oh, that's like so silly that I'm worried, it's like not on your mind at all. Like your brain can do that because you've expanded your consciousness and your perspective has grown, and you actually have a more realistic perspective of what's going on. And that's what meditation does. It helps you expand your consciousness so that your perspective can actually see, so that you don't have to go on a trip. You don't have to like sit there and watch a simulation of like, here's a cell and here it grows into like the earth and the solar system and the whole universe and you don't have to like induce that type of feeling from outside external content. You can generate it yourself. Your body has the means of doing it. And it's a practice that's been oppressed. Like I said, people who have been villainized and persecuted and locked in asylums and burned at the stake and all kinds of stuff, just for like basically for being in touch with the earth and in touch with what it is to be a member of the human species. And this is like, yeah, it's absolutely overwhelming to me when I am really considering like the implications of this teensy little oversight of the divine masculine. I'm not blaming men. It's not about men. Masculine and feminine, the divine masculine and feminine is not about gender. It's about magnetism and electricity. So, but anyway. Yeah, so look at Tantra. Consider chunking your mindfulness stuff. That stuff stresses me out. Like, does nobody else feel stressed out by mindful techniques? They stress me out, and it turned me off to any other kind of meditation because I thought everything was going to be like that. I thought that was it, because it's like, well, the research says it's wonderful, so if I'm not liking this, then I guess it doesn't work for me. No. There's like a way cooler way to do it that actually helps you, and it's fun and gives you a greater sense of meaning, and that I can't even describe. So anyway, yeah, look into it. That's my rant about mindfulness today. I'm Alice on a hot